Book of Heaven, Volume 12, Part 3. September 18th, 1917. Effects of Constancy in Good. Continuing in my usual state, I was in it in the midst of pains. More so since my celestial mamma had made herself seen crying. And I asked her, "My mamma, why are you crying?" She told me, "My daughter, how could I not cry, since the fire of divine justice would want to devour everything? The fire of sins devours all the good of souls, and the fire of justice wants to destroy all that belongs to creatures. And in seeing the fire running, I cry. Therefore pray, pray." Then I was lamenting to Jesus about his privations. It seemed to me that, without him, I could take no more. And my lovable Jesus, moved to compassion for my poor soul, came, and transforming me into himself, told me, "My daughter, patience. Constancy in good places everything in safety. Even more, I tell you that when you, deprived of me, fight between life and death for the pain of being without your Jesus, and in spite of this, you remain constant in good, and you neglect nothing, you do nothing other than squeeze yourself. And in squeezing, love of self, natural satisfactions come out. Your nature remains as though undone, and what is left is a juice so pure and sweet that I take with so much delight that I am sweetened. And I look at you with so much love and tenderness as to feel your pains as if they were my own. In the same way, if you are cold, arid, and the like, and you remain constant, you give as many more squeezes to yourself, and you form more juice for my embittered heart. It happens as with a fruit that is prickly and has a hard skin, but contains a sweet and useful substance inside. If the person is constant in removing the prickles, in squeezing that fruit, he shall extract all the substance of the fruit, and shall enjoy the best of that fruit. So the poor fruit has remained empty of the good that it contained. Even more, the prickles and the skin have been thrown away. The same for the soul. In coldness, in aridities, she throws natural satisfactions to the ground. She empties herself of herself, and through constancy, she squeezes herself. And the soul remains with the pure fruit of good, and I enjoy the sweetness of it. So if you are constant, everything shall serve you as good, and I shall lay my graces with confidence." September 28th, 1917. The acts done in the divine will are suns that illuminate all, and shall serve to put in safety those who have a little bit of goodwill. Continuing in my usual state, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, darkness is thick, and creatures precipitate more. Even more, in this darkness, they are digging the precipice in which they shall perish. The mind of man has remained blind. It has no more light to look at good, but only at evil. And evil shall inundate him, and shall make him perish. So, There, where they believed to find escape, they shall find death. Ah, my daughter, ah, my daughter. Then he added, the acts done in my will are like suns that illuminate all, and as long as the act of the creature in my will lasts, one more sun shines in the blind minds, and those who have a little bit of good shall find the light to escape from the precipice. As for the others, they shall all perish. Therefore, in these times of thick darkness, how much good the acts of the creature done in my will do! For those who shall escape, it shall be only by virtue of these acts. Having said this, he withdrew. Then he came back again and added, I can say of the soul who does my will and lives in it, that she is my carriage, and I hold the reins of everything. I hold the reins of her mind, of her affections, of her desires, and I leave not even one of them in her power. And sitting upon her heart, in order to be more comfortable, my dominion is complete, and I do whatever I want. Now I make the carriage run. Now I make it fly. Now it brings me to heaven. Now I make it go round the whole earth. Now I stop. Oh, how glorious and victorious I am, and I dominate and rule. But if the soul does not do my will and lives of the human will, the carriage falls apart. She takes the reins away from me, and I remain without dominion, like a poor king cast out of his kingdom. And the enemy takes my place, while the reins remain at the mercy of her own passions. October 4th, 1917. The pains and the blood of Jesus run after man to heal him and save him. This morning, my always lovable Jesus transported me outside of myself, and he was in my arms, with his face so very close to mine, kissing me very softly, as if he did not want me to perceive it. But after he repeated his kisses, I could not contain myself from requiting him with my kisses. But while I was kissing him, the thought came to me of kissing his most holy lips, and trying to suckle the bitternesses that he contained. Who knows, Jesus might surrender. Said and done. I kissed him and I tried to suckle, but nothing would come out. I prayed him to pour his bitternesses into me, and again I suckled with more strength, but nothing. It seemed that my Jesus suffered from the efforts I was making over him, and after I repeated, with ardor, for the third time, I felt the breath of Jesus, most bitter, coming into me, and I saw something hard across the throat of Jesus that could not come out, and prevented the bitternesses that he contained from coming out, so that he might pour them into me. And my afflicted Jesus, almost crying, told me, my daughter, resign yourself. Don't you see what hardness man has put into me with sin, that prevents me from sharing my bitternesses with the one who loves me? Oh, don't you remember when in the past I would tell you, let me do, otherwise man shall reach the point of doing so much evil as to exhaust evil itself, not knowing what more evil to do? And you did not want me to strike man, and man became worse and worse. He has accumulated so much pus within himself that not even the war managed to make this pus come out. War did not knock man down. On the contrary, it made him grow bolder. The revolution shall make him furious. Misery shall make him despair and give himself prey to crime. All this will serve in some way to make the rot that man contains come out. And then, my goodness, not indirectly through creatures, but directly from heaven, shall strike man. And these chastisements shall be like beneficial dew descending from heaven, that shall kill man. And he, touched by my hand, shall recognize himself, shall wake up from the sleep of sin, and shall recognize his Creator. Therefore, daughter, pray that everything may be for the good of man. Jesus remained with his bitterness, and I remained afflicted because I was unable to relieve Jesus. I could just feel his bitter breath, and I found myself inside myself. But I felt restless. The words of Jesus tormented me. I could see the terrible future before my mind. And Jesus, to calm me, came back, and almost to distract me, told me, "How much love! How much love!" See, as I suffered and pain remained in me, I would say, "My pain, go, run, run, go in search of man. Help him, and may my pains be the strength of his." As I shed my blood, I would say to each drop, "Run, run, save man for me. And if he is dead, give him a life, but divine life. And if he escapes, run after him, besiege him from all sides, confound him with love until he surrenders." As the wounds were forming in my body under the scourges, I repeated, "My wounds do not remain with me, but go in search of man. And if you find him wounded by sin, place yourselves as seal in order to heal him." So everything I did and said, everything I placed around man to put him in safety. You too, for love of me, do not keep anything for yourself, but let everything run after man to save him, and I shall regard you as another me. October 8th, 1917. Everything that has been done by Jesus is eternal. The souls who love Jesus stand in for him. Continuing in my usual state, my lovable Jesus came for just a little, and since I was very much in pain, he told me, "My daughter, everything that has been done by me is eternal." So my suffering humanity was to be, not for a time, but for as long as the world is world. And since my humanity in heaven is no longer capable of suffering, I make use of the humanities of creatures, making them share in my pains, in order to continue my humanity on earth. And this with justice, because when I was on earth, I incorporated all the humanities of creatures within me, in order to place them in safety, and do everything for them. Now, being in heaven, I diffuse this humanity of mine in them, especially in those who love me. My pains and everything that my humanity did for the good of souls astray, so as to say to the Father, "My humanity is in heaven, but also on earth, in the souls who love me and who suffer. Therefore my satisfaction is always complete. My pains are always in act, because the souls who love me stand in for me. So be consoled when you suffer, because you receive the honor of standing in for me. October 20th, 1917. How the soul can make of herself a host for love of Jesus. Having received my Jesus, I was thinking of how I could render love for love, and I found it impossible for me to be able to restrict myself, make myself smaller, as Jesus does in the host for love of me. This is not in my power, as it is in the power of Jesus. And my beloved Jesus told me, "My daughter, if you cannot restrict all of yourself within the small circle of a host for love of me, you can very well restrict all of yourself within my will, to be able to form the host of yourself in my will. For each act you do in my will, you shall make a host for me, and I shall feed myself of you, as you of me." What forms the host? My life in it. And what is my will? Is it not the whole of my life? So you too can make of yourself a host for love of me. The more acts you do in my will, the more host you shall form, to render me love for love. October 23rd, 1917. The first act that Jesus did in receiving himself sacramentally. This morning, after having received Blessed Jesus, I was saying to him, "My life, Jesus, tell me, what was the first act you did when you received yourself sacramentally?" And Jesus, "My daughter, the first act I did was that of multiplying my life into as many lives for as many creatures as can exist in the world, so that each one might have one life of mine within herself alone, a life that continuously prays, thanks, satisfies, loves for her alone. In the same way, I multiplied my pains for each soul, as if I were suffering for her alone, and not for others. In that supreme moment of receiving myself, I gave myself to all, and to suffer my passion in each heart, to be able to subdue the hearts by dint of pains and of love. And giving all of my divine self, I came to take the dominion of all. But alas, my love remained disappointed by many, and I anxiously await loving hearts that in receiving me would unite with me to multiply themselves in every one, desiring and wanting what I want, so that I may take at least from them what the others do not give me, and receive the contentment of having them as conformed to my desire and to my will. Therefore, my daughter, when you receive me, do what I did, and I shall have the contentment that there are at least the two of us wanting the same thing." But while he was saying this, Jesus was very afflicted, and I, "Jesus, why are you so afflicted?" Ah, like a flood they shall inundate the countries. How many evils, how many evils. Italy is going through sad, most sad hours. Draw yourselves closer to me. Be in accord among yourselves. Pray that the evils may not be much worse. And I, "Ah, my Jesus, And my country? What shall happen to it? You don't love me as before, when, loving me, you would hold back. And he, almost sobbing, it is not true. I love you. November 2nd, 1917. Laments of Jesus. Threats of chastisements for Italy. Continuing in my state amid privations, pains, and bitternesses, especially because of so many evils that one hears about, and the entrance of the foreigners into Italy, I was praying good Jesus to stop the enemies, and I said to him, "Was this perhaps the flood you were talking about in the last days?" And good Jesus, on coming, told me, "My daughter, the flood I was talking about was precisely this, and the flood shall continue to flow and flow. The foreigners shall continue to invade Italy. She has very much deserved it. I had chosen Italy as a second Jerusalem. She, in return, has disregarded my laws, has denied to me the rights that were due to me. I can say that she no longer behaved like man, but like beast. And under the heavy scourge of the war, I was not even recognized, and she wanted to go on as my enemy. Justly has she deserved this defeat, and I shall continue to humiliate her to the dust." And I, interrupting him, "Jesus, what are you saying? Poor homeland of mine, how torn you shall be. Jesus, have pity. Stop the current of the foreigner." And Jesus, "My daughter, to my sorrow, I have to allow the foreigner to advance. You, because you do not love souls as I do, would want her victory. But if Italy wins, it shall be a ruin for souls. Their pride would reach such point as to ruin that little bit of good that is left in the nation. They would have pointed themselves out to the peoples as the nation that can do without God. Ah, my daughter, the scourges shall continue. Towns shall be devastated. I shall strip them of everything. The poor and the rich shall be one single thing. They did not want to know my laws. They had made of the earth a god for each one. And I, by stripping them, shall make them recognize what the earth is. I shall purify the earth by fire, for the stench it gives off is such that I cannot bear it. Many shall remain buried in the fire, and in this way I shall make the earth come to its senses. It is necessary. The salvation of souls requires it. I had told you about these scourges a long time before. The time has come, but not yet completely. More evils shall come. I shall make the earth come to its senses. I shall make the earth come to its senses. And I, my Jesus, placate yourself, enough for now. And he, ah no, you pray, and I shall render the enemy less cruel. November 20th, 1917. The reason for chastisements. Jesus shall make the sanctity of living in the divine will reappear. Continuing in my state, ever more painful, my always lovable Jesus comes and runs away like a flash, and he does not give me time even to pray him for the great evils that poor humanity is going through, especially my dear homeland. What a blow to my heart, the entrance of the foreigners into her. I thought that Jesus had told me this before, in order to make me pray. And when he comes, if I pray him, he says to me, I shall be inexorable. And if I press him by saying to him, Jesus, don't you want to have compassion? Don't you see how towns are destroyed? How people remain naked and starving? Jesus, how hard you have become. He answers me, my daughter, I am not concerned about the cities, the great things of the earth. I am concerned about souls. Cities, churches, and the like, after they have been destroyed, can be redone. Did I not destroy everything in the flood? And then was it not redone again? But if souls are lost, it is forever. There is no one who can give them back to me again. I cry for souls. They have denied heaven for the earth, and I shall destroy the earth. I shall make disappear the most beautiful things that, like rope, bind man. And I, Jesus, what are you saying? And he, courage, do not lose heart. I shall move forward, and you, come into my will, live in it, so that the earth may no longer be your dwelling, but I myself may be your dwelling. And in this way you shall be completely safe. My will has the power to render the soul transparent, and since the soul is transparent, whatever I do is reflected in her. If I think, my thought is reflected in her mind and becomes light, and her thought, like light, is reflected in mine. If I look, if I speak, if I love, and so forth, like many lights, they are reflected in her, and she in me. So we are in continuous reflections, in perennial communication, in reciprocal love. And since I am everywhere, the reflections of these souls reach me in heaven, on earth, in the sacramental host, in the hearts of creatures. Everywhere and always I give light, and light they send me. I give love, and love they give me. They are my terrestrial dwellings, in which I take refuge from the disgust of the other creatures. Oh, the beautiful living in my will! I like it so much that I shall make disappear all other sanctities under any other aspect of virtue in the future generations, and I shall make the sanctity of living in my will reappear, that are and shall be not human sanctities, but divine. And their sanctity shall be so high that, like suns, they shall eclipse the most beautiful stars of the saints of the past generations. This is why I want to purge the earth, because it is unworthy of these portents of sanctity. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 12, Part 3. Fiat.